Certainly when I was a journalist, there was a far smaller group of people who I could use as potential sources because you couldn't reach people. Now I can send out emails, I can send out a Twitter, I can send out a Facebook update looking for information. I can reach people instantly all over the world. I can get those eyewitness accounts. I can get people telling me things from a grassroots level that I, sitting in my office in London, would never ever have had access to. I think that anybody who has, particularly in recent world events with the Arab Spring, anybody who is ignoring the role of social media is missing perhaps as much as 60 and maybe even 70 to 80% of the story. We've seen a situation where disenfranchised populations who don't have access to the normal forms of media, the traditional forms where we would expect to see television, radio, newspapers, magazines, those have been cut off by regimes which obviously want to stop the flow of information. You can't stop the flow of information. And one of the things that we have seen in recent years is there has been, rather than a top-down approach to media, we've started to see a bottom-up approach. So people are finding the ways through the artificial barriers that perhaps have been created in their own countries. We were trained in them as journalists. We were trained to see that there were problems. We were trained to see, for example, that you needed to verify sources. Now we have a situation where there are some red flashing danger lights, because how do you verify a photograph that has been uploaded to an internet account and says that it is, for example, a Syrian protester who has been murdered by the ruling party? How do you know where that comes from? How do you know that you are not now just being a tool for propaganda for one side or for the other? So it has given us an enormous opportunity to tap into new sources for news. As a journalist, you are paid, it's your role to give context, to give verification, and to make meaning out of chaos. And I think one of the problems that we're seeing with the role of the citizen journalist is that they don't do that. They take a picture and then they just put it up out of context. And that doesn't tell the story. It's unhelpful for people, perhaps who are sitting thousands of miles away, who can't make sense of this. It's a source of information. It's not the only source of information. We still need the rules. We still need the professional codes of conduct. We still need the way you interview people in a sensitive way, because those standards keep journalists safe. If you are arrested, if you are taken up by the security services in a country as a journalist, and you are able to show that not only your organisation has a code of conduct that's internationally accepted, that all the journalists abide by, if you're able to show that that exists, and also that your story is accurate, is free from bias, has balanced sources, you are in a much safer position, even if you've been arrested, than the journalist who says, well, I took this stuff and I put it on the internet. You have no protection. Newspapers are going to have to adapt and are adapting in order to survive. They're having their online version, so they're actually becoming far more like the agencies where I have spent most of my career working, with immediate news updated very, very quickly, with tweets, with blogs, because they realise that there's a gap. They get the information, but then there's 12 hours until the printed version is actually for sale. I hope the newspapers do survive. I understand that they're going through very, very difficult times and that they are going to have to change. I do think there is a role for them in the future, but I think it's necessary for us to have the newspapers just to remind us of the standards of the past as we move into the future.